Hey guys, happy Wednesday. You are going to be listening to chapter 5 of our story, Jack, today. Yesterday, you needed to make a prediction based on the title of the chapter, which is Up in the Green, Into the Blue. So, with your prediction in mind, I'm going to read you guys chapter 5. Remember that the PDF version of the chapter is also on Google Classroom if you want to read it yourself, read it with your parents, your older sibling, or just look back on it for work the rest of the week. I miss you guys, and I'm excited to read this chapter. So, chapter 5, Up in the Green, Into the Blue. Snap! Crack! Thwack! My eyes flew open. It was morning, but my room was full of moving shadows. Something big and dark was lurking outside my window. Was it the giants? Had they come back to snatch the rest of us? Slowly, I crept out of bed and poked my head out the window. Something green unfurled and nearly smacked my face. I didn't know what it was, but it didn't look like a giant, unless giants were green. Thwack! Snap! Crack! Hack! I screamed as a long green short finger shot through the window and poked my face. Sorry, I wanted to make sure Zoe didn't come in. Okay. I screamed as a long, green short finger shot through the window and poked my face. I slapped at it and scrambled away from the window. I grabbed Papa's book of giant tales and raised it above my head to smash whatever green monster had just reached inside my bedroom. I lowered the book and stared as the green finger split and swelled and something unfurled and flopped on the floor. It was just a leaf, but a big one, too big to be normal. I remembered what was below my window, the garden. I remembered what I had planted there just yesterday, the giant beans. I climbed down my ladder, raced out the door, and around back. Snakes and toads, the beans! They were swelling and growing right before my eyes. They were as tall as the house already. The beanstalks snapped and groaned as they tore at the thatch and wrapped around the stone chimney as though circling the beanpole. Jack? Mama called. What is that racket? Who's here? Annabella raced outside, her braids flopping wildly. When she saw the beanstalks, she crashed right into me. We both stood there, craning our necks. The three stalks were twisting around each other, making one giant beanstalk. It was taller than the tallest tree now. Jack! Annabella! What's going on? Mama came out of the house awkwardly, hopping along behind a chair so she wouldn't put any weight on her broken foot. She didn't have to go far. Oh my! She stared open mouthed at the beanstalk, still twisting and stretching toward the sky. See? I wasn't lying. Those were giant beans, and this beanstalk will lead us to the giants, to Papa. Mama didn't say anything. She just gaped upward. Then, for the first time since the giant had come, she took a quick look around the farm. Her jaw dropped as she saw the empty fields, the torn-up barn, the uprooted trees. The heaps of dirt and holes from the giant footsteps, just like in Miss Letty's cabbage field. Mama looked back to the giant beanstalk and then lastly to the sky. I knew she wouldn't admit it, but Mama was far too practical. But I could see she was considering the possibility of giants. The seed had been planted and the idea was growing in her. You'd best give it plenty of water, said Mama. Beans need lots of water to grow. I suspect this will need a great deal more. And that was all she said. She took the chair and hopped back into the house. Annabella and I looked at each other, and then we raced to the well and drew water for the beanstalk. We poured bucket after bucket into the garden, or until the garden was properly drenched. How fast do you think it will grow? Annabella asked. When will we be able to reach the sky? I laughed. You're not going up there. Annabella gaped. What do you mean? You said the beanstalk would take us to Papa. It will take me to Papa. You're too small. Annabella's confused look crumpled into a scowl. No, I'm not. I can climb just as well as you can. She stomped her foot in the muddy garden, spraying mud all over her skirt. But who will take care of Mama? She still needs help with her leg. She's getting stronger, though. Annabella was determined. Maybe by the time the beanstalk reaches the sky, she'll be fine and I can come. If you're sure, I gave an exaggerated sigh. It will be dangerous, though. The giants could stomp you flat. They could cook you in a stew, bake you in a pile, or peel the skin right off your bones like a chicken. You want that to happen? I'm not afraid, said Annabella, but her eyes were wide. Her resolve was weakening. Just to be thorough, I gathered a bucket of snakes and toads and dumped the whole thing directly around the base of the beanstalk. The next morning, when we came to water the beanstalk, a toad hopped right onto Annabella's foot, and then a snake slithered over the other one. She dropped the bucket of water and ran away screaming. No problem a bucket of snakes and toads can't fix. I watered the beanstalk every morning, and it grew uncommonly fast. Sometimes I could see it Sometimes I could see it growing before my eyes, slowly swelling and creeping skyward. It was like the beanstalk was seized by some magic, like it knew it did not belong in this world, and so it stretched and grew toward its own land. By the end of the first day, I could barely see the top of the beanstalk, and by the second, the tips of the beanstalk seemed to graze the clouds, and the base was as thick as a large tree trunk. On the third day, the bean pods swelled, and after a week, they were as tall as me, some even taller. I cut a bunch down and built a fort out of beans at the base. I'd live in it until the beanstalk reached the sky. I showed my bean fort to Mama, and then wished I hadn't. Oh, Jack, we're saved! She clapped her hands together at the sight of the beans. You wonderful boy! You made a good trade after all. I did? I wasn't sure what she meant, but I guess she liked my fort. Of course, these beans will feed us all winter. I felt my face grow as green as the beans. Eat them? Snakes and toads. I hadn't thought for a moment that we would actually eat the beans. Gross. Mama made me go up the beanstalk and harvest all the beans that were fully grown. Before the day was done, our cellar was piled to the ceiling with nothing but giant green beans, and Mama started cooking again. She boiled the beans, pickled them, dried them, mashed them into soups and cakes. She even made a bean porridge for breakfast. Blech. I thought dirt and worms would taste better. I was almost ready to try it. Why couldn't it have been a giant apple tree or a blackberry bush? I said, rolling a giant boiled bean around on my plate. Too thorny, said Mamma. Imagine 1,000 daggers coming at you every time you tried to pick a berry. She ate a spoonful of bean porridge and grinned like a little girl. It was the first time I'd seen her smile since Papa had gone. Of course she was happy, now that she had enough food for the winter, but I got the feeling that she was also enjoying my misery, and especially for the fact that I had no one to blame but myself. I slept inside my bean fort that night, and it reminded me of the times Papa and I had camped out under the stars beside the great oak tree. Papa would tell the tale of the giant who found Grandpa Jack asleep beneath the tree and carried him off to his castle to eat him. What if a giant comes and finds me here? I would ask. Then I'd protect you, said Papa. What if they take me away? Then I'd come and find you, said Papa. But it all felt different when the giants took Papa. That had never been in the stories. The giants always took Jack, never someone he really loved and cared about, never the one person he needed more than anything in the world. Sorry. I woke in the middle of the night to rain. It trickled through the cracks of my bean fort and sprinkled on my face. I rolled over. It got in my ear. I sat up and held out my hand. The rain didn't trickle off in little streams. It sat in my hand in solid clumps. I smiled. Dirt. It was time to climb. Heart racing, I grabbed Papa's axe and tied it around my waist with some rope. I had my sling in a pocket full of stones. I had the beanstalk that had led to the giant world to Papa. I waited for nothing else. I did not say goodbye to Mama and Annabella. I left no message. They would figure out soon enough where I had gone. I started to climb, quickly at first, but when the sun began to peek up from the horizon, it was like I was racing into the sky. Who could climb the sky faster, Jack or the sun? Who could climb higher? Every now and then I looked down to see my world getting smaller and smaller until our farm was nothing more than a little square. Our house was just a dot. I climbed for what felt like hours, and then I heard a rumbling. Oh no, the giants have seen the beanstalk. I froze. wondering if I should climb down or speed up and try to get to the top. The rumbling came again, louder this time, and very near. It was my stomach. Ha! I was starving. No wonder I could barely climb. I should have brought food with me, but in my excitement and rush, I hadn't thought of it. I suppose it didn't matter after all that much since I was climbing the same food we had at home. I wedged myself into a crevice next to a giant bean, then took my axe and split open the pod. I nibbled on a bean just until I was no longer starving. I'm sorry, you guys. And then I tossed the rest and watched it fall down and disappear. I couldn't see our house, and the far off village didn't seem like my home anymore, just below. I felt stronger and I started to climb again, higher and higher until I met the sun, and then the sun started going down. I had climbed nearly all day. It was a long way to the sky. Eventually, the clouds hovered above my head. They looked as warm and soft as the thistledown, so I plunged into the fluffy white and gasped. The clouds were cold and wet. It was like a milky ocean. I could still breathe, but I couldn't see, not even my hand in front of my face. I was completely lost in my sense of direction. Which way was up? Which way was down? I clung to the beanstalk, shivering as the cold wetness seeped down into my bones. Finally, I tipped my head back and spat. When the spit came down on my face, I knew which way was up again. I climbed a little faster. At last, I pushed through the top of the clouds and came into the blue, which wasn't just blue, but a barrier of sorts. The top of the sky, the end of my world, the beginning of another. The blue was a soft, shimmery curtain. I reached a finger out and poked it. It jiggled like jelly, but resumed in its glossy smoothness. The beanstalk seemed to be growing upside down out of the blue. I took out my axe and stabbed at it. It split open and dirt sprinkled down on my face. Beyond the blue was a ceiling of dirt, stretching as far as the eye could see. The beanstalk bent and twisted between the dirt ceiling and the blue until it found an opening and allowed it to grow upward. A hole so wide it could fit a giant. There must be a hole the giants had to come through. It looked endless, like no light above, and my muscles ached with the thought of more climbing. Don't give up now, Jack, I said to myself. You haven't even gotten to the giants yet. Take courage. I climbed up the beanstalk. The spot of blue began to darken until I could no longer see it. It must be night, and then, at last, a pinprick of light appeared above me. The top! I ignored the scream of my arms and legs and climbed faster. The opening at the top was small, but just big enough for the beanstalk to push through, but far too small for a giant. It must have been covered up somehow. At last, I emerged from the hole. I pushed through some leaves and landed face down in the dirt, heaving and coughing and laughing. Ha ha! I made it! I was in a land beyond the sky. Giants, beware.